imagine that after Encounter, you had other offers on the table. Why did you choose Echo Valley?
I mean, it just pushed a lot of buttons for me. I'm always trying to find, I've got a big checklist for when I go through a script. I want to be moved by it. I want to feel, I want my heart rate to go up. I want there to be sort of deep adult themes. And it's quite hard to get all of that in one script. And so I read it very quickly, and I was seduced by the world that Brad had created. It felt lived in, and it had texture and nuance and specificity. And it was a kind of slow burn thriller that sort of every 10 or 20 pages would ramp up a gear and ramp up a gear. And it just had so many surprises in it, and I couldn't predict it. So it just, as soon as I finished, I called my agent and I said, how do I get this project? It felt like I'd found a rare gem. It really doesn't happen that often. I don't think there are many writers that work at that level.
A common thread in your films is your interest in complicated family relationships. What draws you to write that kind of psychological family drama?
Yeah, I don't totally know, because I had a very happy upbringing and a loving family. Maybe I think I find it's strange where families are supposed to be the most loving people in your life that you care for and that care for you, and that familial love should be unconditional and, you know, relatively uncomplicated. But so often that's not the case. Often families are the people that hurt each other the most, and they can betray each other. And I think, yeah, it's so painful when family members are cruel to each other. And I feel there's a lot of pathos in that. And when I see it, you know, with people I know who have maybe fraught relationships with family members, it's, I find it's quite heartbreaking. And so I think that's why a lot of authors and playwrights and novelists and filmmakers look at family relationships, because it's supposed to be a place of safety, but it can be a really hostile dynamic. So I don't know why I'm drawn to it, given that I didn't come from a family like that.
One key aspect of the film is Claire's addiction, especially that painful sense between mother and daughter, that there's nothing left they can do to save her because they have already tried everything. How did you want to convey that emotionally?
I mean, what I liked on the page was the specificity of that the intervention scene had happened years ago, and that the characters had kind of acclimatized to this new normal where Claire was going to be in and out of addiction. And, you know, I felt there was a lot of nuances and small scenes. You know, when Julianne's character asks her, you know, if she's clean, and Sydney's character says that she is, you know, it's two women that are lying to each other, but they just want to keep the facade of a wholesome relationship. And there's something unsettling about that, but I find it so easy to identify with it. I totally understand why they would want to lie to each other. I talked about that with Sydney and Julie, and that we just found all these little ironies and paradoxes in their relationships, and how they could be cruel and kind to each other in different moments. That just felt rich for us to get stuck into. So we weren't trying to think about too much about other movies that have explored this issue. We were just trying to look at the script and these characters and find, as many of the subtleties and specificities as we could.
If I had told you 10 years ago that by 2025 you will be releasing a film starring actors of this caliber, what would you have said to me?
I wouldn't have believed you. It's a dream. I mean, I think because I aspire to be, I'm still on the journey, but I'd like to be an actor's director. Sometimes my favorite directors, whether that's Paul Thomas Anderson or Sidney Lumet, or you're really struck by the performances in their films, and they're the films that stay with me the most. And so I think to make a movie where I have Julianne Moore, Sydney Sweeney, Donald Gleason, Fiona Shaw, I felt so lucky to walk onto set each day, and I think particularly with those personalities, there was so much camaraderie. They're very collaborative spirits. You know, they come with ideas and they're so impassioned. And, you know, Julie, I don't know how many movies she's done, but she comes to set with the excitable energy of someone in their 20s doing one of their first movies, you know. And so it's just awesome to see people at different stages of their career just come in with such enthusiasm, and they just love the job. And I find that really infectious, you know, to watch them like that. So it was really a privilege.
Thank you so much, Michael, for the interview, and congratulations on the film.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.